Welcome to Mr. Chalk's Revision Tips. In this video, we will look at disease transmission, bacterial and viral diseases, and disease reservoirs. So, if you remember, bacteria are or can be disease-causing microorganisms, and if they are, they're called pathogens. Right, remember that bacteria don't have any nuclei, they don't have any chromosomes, and they have their DNA in a kind of ring called a plasmid. Some have a flagella to move as well. Right, viruses. Remember, viruses are not alive. They need to go and enter a host cell in order to go and reproduce. So technically are parasitic. So the reservoir of an infectious agent is the habitat in which the agent normally lives, grows or multiplies. Reservoirs include humans, animals or the environment. So the reservoir may or may not be the source from which an infectious agent is transferred to a host. So human reservoirs, so many common infection diseases have human reservoirs, so the diseases are transmitted from person to person. Animal reservoirs, so humans are also subject to diseases that have animal reservoirs, so things like malaria and influenza also go and circulate through animal populations. There can be environmental reservoirs, so plants, soil and water in the environment are also reservoirs for some infectious agents. So many fungal agents, such as those that cause histoplasmosis, live and multiply in the soil and go on to cause outbreaks of Legionnaire's disease. So direct contact of an infection is when a disease-causing microorganisms pass from an infected person to a healthy person via direct physical contact with either blood or body fluids. So examples of direct contact, things like touching, kissing, sexual contact, things like that. Direct contact infections spread when disease-causing microorganisms from the infected person pass to a healthy person via direct contact, like we just said. So there are a few other types. We can have droplet spread. So this refers to the spray of a relatively large, short-range aerosols produced by sneezing, coughing, or even talking. So droplet spread is classified as direct because the transmission is by direct spray over a few feet before the droplets fall and hit the ground. Skin to skin, so some infections are spread directly when a skin or a mucous membrane, so that's the thin lining of many parts of the body, come into contact with an infection. Some inoculations or some infections are spread when blood or other body fluids from an infected person come into contact with an uninfected person. So the mucous membranes, such as the throat or the inside of the nose, come into contact with the infectious agent directly from somebody else's blood, for example. Indirect transmission refers to the transmission of an infectious agent from a reservoir to a host by suspended air particles, inanimate objects, or animate intermediaries, which are called vectors. So it could be aerosol, so pathogenic agents containing aerosol droplets might go and land on surfaces before going and being picked up. Oral consumption of pathogenic agents in contaminated feed, water, chewing or licking something from the environment. So feed and water contamination with feces or urine are frequently the cause of oral transmission of a disease. Formite, so contaminated inanimate object, transmits the disease agent from one susceptible animal to another, for instance. So it involves a secondary route of transmission, such as something being left on something like a bowl or a bucket, which would then go and be come into contact with another animal. Or you can have vector-borne transmission. So this is where an insect acquires a pathogen from one animal and transmits it to another either mechanically or biologically. So the most common type that we think about is things like malaria, where we have mosquitoes spreading it. So a disease vector is any agent which carries and transmits an infectious pathogen into another living organism. Most agents regarded as vectors are organisms such as intermediate parasites or microbes, but could also be inanimate mediate such as dust particles. So deadly viruses can be carried great distances on the wind, so large amounts of viruses are excreted by infected animals before the signs of the disease are evident, and the winds may spread this over long distances. Spores swim in the surface film of the water on leaves, so raindrops can splash on them and spread the pathogens in that way. And a vector can be a living organism that transmits the infectious agent from an infected animal to a human or another animal, so something like a mosquito or a tick. And pathogens can be spread between humans by hands, clothing, transporting crops, or by farming practices.
Thanks for watching.